Hi, friends. So here we are, inching closer and closer to the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. The end of what is probably going to go down in history as one of the strangest years ever, but surely not the end of the strangeness, just the beginning of a new chapter of weird. On top of monoliths and murder hornets and the pandemic and the election and all the other high strangeness of these times. I read an article today that came out on Forbes about actually how an Israeli government official talked about how the government has been cooperating with the Galactic Federation of Light and that disclosure isn't imminent. I mean, what else? What else could actually happen? Um, Anything, everything, nothing. I mean, it's just fucking weird. But as these conversations have been kind of echoing and building off of one another, I think generally a lot of us within this space are arriving at similar conclusions. And those similar conclusions kind of find their meeting ground in the idea that the future is, really uncertain. But the way to pivot our focus really is on community and using social media as a tool for connection, but also to start finding ways to build community offline. And I know that's so hard to consider when we're in the midst of a quarantine. We can't even, we're supposed to be 6 feet apart from each other. We're not even supposed to gather. I mean, LA is going into lockdown. So the idea of like building community and finding ways to like figure this out. I mean, how do you do that when we're like literally being forced away from each other? But where there's a will, there's a way. And I think of that silly quote where they say they tried to bury us, but they didn't realize that we're seeds. So right now, seeds are germinating, blossoming, and new potential is being born. And it's not what I think a lot of us expected. Many, including myself, are kind of waking up to stop chasing peak experiences or altered states of consciousness and are really leaning deeper into like the psychedelics of sobriety. A lot of perspective shifts and clarity. And for that, there's a lot of gratitude to be had. If you can kind of traverse this time with a clear mind, open heart, and pretty fucking powerful boundaries, I think you'll be pretty okay. But anyway, today's conversation is something that I am really, really excited to share. And I know I say this about every conversation that I'm thrilled to share, excited to share, but I am. Everybody I have on this show is somebody that I admire, care about, or have a deep connection with. When I used to do my podcast, Liberation Frequency, I didn't vet my guests as well. I was just literally like interviewing different authors that were being sent to me. And quite frankly, it was fucking exhausting. And I'm just not doing that anymore. This is a labor of love. And everybody I have on is somebody that I want to support, highlight, and connect with. And I think that you'll find value in connecting, supporting, and highlighting as well. So with that being said, today's conversation is with the beautiful, lovely, wonderful Gangsta Gurry. Gary and I connected through social media. I don't even know when. I think it may have been through Lauren McAlpin, who was a former guest on Radio Amenti, but I can't pinpoint the thread of connection, but there was immediate resonance, as with a lot of amazing souls that I have the honor of connecting with on social media. Gary has beautiful energy and is just is a personality I really appreciate, and I think you will as well. So a little bit about Gary. So Gary D. McCrear, or Gangsta Gurry, he, him, his, is a Black queer educator, writer, and healer based out of Brooklyn, New York. He uses a variety of healing tools such as tarot, reiki, and candle magic for self-actualization and reflection in his day-to-day life and in the lives of others to help further educate his communities. You can find Gary on Instagram at Gangsta Gurry. It's GangstaGurry. We'll have links to everything in the show notes, but I highly suggest you give him a follow. This conversation is great. We talk spirituality, sobriety, boundaries, how to kind of like navigate the density of New York and the times that we're in, and that, our story is ever evolving, ever shifting. And when we can become fluent in the language of learning and unlearning, we tap deeper into our potential as healers, teachers, creators, human beings, traversing a time that's fucking really weird. So now more than ever, we need to find resonant souls that speak the same language as us. And Gary is one of those human beings for me. So, anyway, hope you enjoyed the episode. I don't really ask these things in the opening show notes, but I'm going to start. If you like what you're hearing, if you could leave us a review on iTunes, it would really mean a lot. As we're getting more consistent with dropping episodes, the more you rate us, the more we rank, the more everything that I'm creating isn't just being lost in the void. So all the support means a lot. So if you could take a moment to rate us on iTunes, seriously, it would mean the world. Follow Gary on Instagram, again, at Gangsta Gurry, and kick back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Welcome to Radio Amenti, embracing the eternal now, where minds and timelines merge, inspiring synchronicity, awakening potential, and making sense of change. Oh my gosh. So here we are. And I feel like you and I have been trying to arrange this podcast for what feels like a very long time now.
Right. It's been a good minute, but I mean, it happened and we're here. I'm excited.
And the timing seems divine. Before we started recording, you had mentioned how here we are in eclipse season, and times have been, it's been a year, let's be honest.
Oh my gosh. Understatement of the year. Like it's been a decade in a year, honestly.
Seriously. I saw a Match.com commercial that came out recently, which is really good. And it's basically like Satan scrolling through Match.com and he matches with 2020. And the Taylor Swift's That Romeo and Juliet song is playing. And it's just so funny because it's like, yeah, I think this was the match made in hell.
Yes, it was a total mood this year. Like it was just like, okay, like you think the worst is here? Ha ha! You ain't seen nothing yet, girl. Like that's really what it was giving the whole year, and you had to just like stay on your feet. It felt like you had to be resting, but like still on your feet at the same time because anything could have happened. It felt like it was out of like a simulation that you see on a like TV show or something like that.
Completely. And anytime you let your guard down, then it's like, oh, fuck, monoliths are popping up all over the world. Okay. So
Like where am I? Like is this really happening? Like did like honestly like there were some moments where I actually had to ask myself, I was like, bitch, are you dead? Like are you really dead right now? Because this is made up. Like this is nothing that you could have ever expected to be going on, as I like to call in the year of our Lord 2020. The wild one.
Totally. Have you heard the theory? And I kind of believe this, but people are legitimately believe that like we actually all died in 2012.
Yes.
Like here we are.
Like, and I'm like, okay, so if we think about that, because I had to do my own math, and I was like, well, where were you in 2012, Miss Girl? And I was like, well, you were graduating college. That was right before your real life started. So, I mean, this whole lifetime of adulthood has been a whole blur. So, I mean, I'll go ahead and run with that theory. It sounds plausible to me, especially with everything that's been happening this year. Like, it really sounds like some shit out of like, what was that book, 1984 or something? Like, something
Mhm.
really, really crazy that you just like made up and threw all of the things that you could imagine into one just like iteration of a year. And it's like, okay, so what you gonna do? And here we are in December. Like, eat that, okay? Eat that 2020.
Totally. Like, what the fuck is going to happen in January? I just don't know. I'm prepared for it all. Like, I have this theory that hologram Jesus is going to come, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whatever it is, I think we've gotten to a point with apocalypse fatigue that like whatever happens, I feel like we're all just like, okay, yeah, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Not surprising.
At this point, I feel like that's literally like the best thing for us to do, because if we find ourselves getting super caught up in like, oh, what's going to happen, or I'm trying to make these plans or whatever, and they didn't go the way that I wanted to, like, then we just get ourselves worked up. So I feel like it's a little bit easier at this point to be like, well, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but it's going to work out in some type of way. As long as I keep praying and as long as, things are protected and I can have a roof over my head, that's really all that you can really hope for at this point, because it's so crazy to see how, like our country has literally just like fallen apart, like at the
Yeah.
drop of a dime. And it's like people are trying to like quote unquote get back to normal, but like, what the fuck is normal? Like, and we're not fucking going back there because that shit was broken too. So it's just like we have this space to really create a new reality in our own likeness based on, obviously like paying attention to what's going on in the world and like making sure we're looking out for each other and like really exhibiting as much kindness as we can and compassion to like our next door neighbor. But everybody's not going to be on that level. So it's like, who can I be on that level with? Because those are the people I'm trying to be around right now. Because this other
Yes.
shit, she can kick rocks. Okay.
Seriously. Yeah, and I mean, like, when you look at things, like, when people talk about, "Oh, I just wanna get back to normal," or whatever, it's like it's almost like people wanna gaslight themselves into believing that things were ever okay.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, systemic racism didn't exist, that the
Mm-hmm.
capitalist society that we've been forced into isn't like, a model that, like, can actually make human beings happy. There are so many
Mm-hmm.
problems that it's like we've pushed away because 'cause we've just been numb, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
apocalypse really, what does it mean? It's like a revelation of truth. So the truth is uncomfortable, but like I'm with you. Like I only want to be on this ride with people that are ready to like buckle up and create something new because there ain't no going back to the bullshit that once was.
Ooh, listen, nobody has time for that mess. Nobody had time for it in the very beginning. And now it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like this charge and this surge of like energy around being able to do something about it, like, and actually do something about it. And the thing about it is, I think keeping in mind that, sometimes we try to think about it on this global aspect, this global impact, but it really begins in your community and really begins in where you see yourself and what you engage yourself around. And that's what kind of like makes change. So it's really thinking about how do I have those types of people around me that are on that same type of wave, and what the fuck we gonna do? Because you know what I'm saying, like I'm ready to roll out and I'm ready to start creating these compounds with my other people. You know what I'm saying? I really think that like that's the way of the future. Like you and your friends, y'all all put on some money on some property, y'all have your children, you have your families, you know what I mean? Like, and really just think about community organizing, community building, and helping to grow in that way. So that way we can kind of like keep ourselves like afloat, keep ourselves abreast, and also make sure that the environments we surround ourselves in are sustainable for us long term.
Completely. And I mean, we as human beings, we're social creatures. I forget who the quote is by, but there's a profound quote where it says like we don't heal in isolation, but we heal in community. So I think prime
Mm-hmm.
quarantine, when we were in isolation and kind of being met with the idea of like not being able to see loved ones and not being able to be around community, how devastating that is to just our mental health.
Yes. Especially for people like I think about people like myself. Like I am a single man living in New York, so I like live by myself. My best friends like live on the same block as me. I'm blessed enough to have them kind of like down the street from me. We went to college together, but it's just like a lot of people don't have community in that way. And I know that my community is very very small, so the idea of just like not seeing people, not being able to even get up the street because of trying to maintain safety and things of that nature, it really just like starts to take a toll on you. And then you start looking at everything around you and really start analyzing it in a different way and start thinking about what truly is important for like my growth, what truly is important for my stability, who is important for my growth and stability, and how can I make sure that I'm showing them how much they mean to me and how much I care about them, and making sure that we continue to just like resonate in that lane of love, because I feel like that was one of the biggest things that I think I came to like realization of some of the places where I've been petty. Because listen, I'm a Scorpio, okay? So I can be very, very petty when I want to be. And it was just like, okay, like there's some things that you don't need to be petty about, but then there's some reasons why you act the way that you do. And like, this may not be the type of relationship that you want to continue to foster in this time because it's not fulfilling the way that you need for it to be. And it's not helping on this path of growth, this path of ascension, as I like to think about it. And I think of like, as you mentioned, the apocalypse, like I feel like the apocalypse is kind of synonymous to like ascension because it's just like things is being broken up and, you know, shaken up and things have to grow out of this place of things being shattered. So I feel like this is kind of like this really huge time for us as the human race to think about the direction that we are taking ourselves, like as community, but also as our own individual selves and what it means to be an individual, what it means to be unique, what it means to be you, like your name, like your genetic code, and how can you resonate with that at its highest vibration and practice kind of like that awareness throughout the next couple of years. Because I mean, this is the time to shine, you know, more often than not.
Definitely. And I love that you said that. I mean, a big key word that stuck out for me this year is sovereign, finding a sense of
Mm-hmm.
sovereignty. And friend breakups can be almost as hard, if not harder, than like breaking up with like a lover or, a
Ooh.
long term like mate. But that's been something
Mm-hmm.
I know you just mentioned that I've faced a lot this year too, a lot of friend breakups. And it's like, I used to look at it as like, you're losing something. But really, I think that it's been this time of creating space for the people you're going to surf through this next wave with.
For sure. I think it was more about like who really sees you on the level that you see yourself now as you are ever changing, ever evolving, ever making mistakes, ever learning from those mistakes and being humble enough to kind of like, you know, take your time to process what it is that you need to. And everybody doesn't process the same way. Everybody doesn't relate in the same way that you thought that they did. And I had a couple of those myself this year where I really had to like look at myself and be like, am I fucked up? Like, or where have I fucked up? And how can I take ownership of that if I did? And if I didn't, then it's just like, how do I express my frustration without overstepping my boundaries? But then also, if we're not able to come to a resolution or if we're not able to see eye to eye, then I can respectfully be like, this is something that I don't want to engage in. And this is not going to be better for either of us. But we can also be like mature enough to respect one another and go our separate ways. But that is still difficult because it takes a lot of like, you not getting caught up in your own shit, your own muck, your own baggage, but also taking the opportunity to, you know, process and take accountability for some things that really needed to shift in your life, whether it's, you know, a personal trait or whether it's just like the type of people that you have around you, because everybody is a mirror reflection of you in some type of way. So it's like, if that's not a image that you want to continue to look at, then that's an image that you need to remove from your surroundings.
Amen to that.
Oh,
Well,
oh.
yes. Yeah, I mean, it's like our universe is this great hall of mirrors. And I think one of the things, alcohol, I know we had talked about this briefly, like alcohol has been like this weird relationship I've had in my life. My dad died a week after I turned 21. So when I turned 21, it was just like all excess and party. And ever since then, like, I've never been a good drinker, but it was like after this summer and dealing with a lot of family trauma, I was like, I just don't want to participate in something that I see bring out such ugliness. So my protest is to
Mhm.
let go of this thing that I actually don't even like anymore, but also like I hate the way it affects the people that I love and can't have a relationship with because of their abuse of a substance, you know?
Yes. Oh my goodness. And it's just like then, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but then it also makes you start looking at people around you in a different way when they engage with the substance because it's just like, you know, their personality changes or maybe just like there's a different type of energy that starts coming up when you do kind of like find yourself around people that are drinking. At least that's been my experience. And I've had a very, very like, I call it tumultuous relationship with alcohol, but I'm in a space now where I can like talk about it from a distance, if that makes sense. Like I can talk about it as a sense of like that was a past life where it was like there was a time where it was something that I was like truly struggling with and it was like a part of my narrative. But for me it's always been this thing of there's not clarity. There's not as much clarity that you have when you are drinking. You're speaking from sometimes like a very like wounded place based on the environment you find yourself in. And then sometimes you find yourself in an environment around people and it's just like, whoa, this is not what I was trying to be on right now. And y'all are somewhere else. And then it becomes some other shit. And it's just like, I don't need that in my life. I don't need to be like, I don't need this energy. And it's just like, I've also seen how it's hurt other people around me when it's not used properly, or sometimes we get caught up in our emotions, and that's what kind of like triggers like over drinking, binging, things of that nature, and that's where it becomes a little mucky.
Yeah. And I think it's also hard because as sensitive creatures, you're an energy healer, you're working with the tarot, you're working in ineffable realms.
Hmm.
When you take on the pain of the world and others and you absorb it, it almost can become this like numbing device to be like, oh, can I just have the fluoride in the toothpaste? Can I just have the cocktail? Can I
Hmm.
just not feel anything right
Hmm.
now?
It's a struggle. And it's like, what do I need? What do I need right now to just take the edge off? Like that's what it feels like a lot of the time. And then it's just like, okay, well, then I start going into like my line of questioning with myself, because I start having an interview like, well, why do you feel this way? Well, where did that come from? Well, why did you even feel like that? Where is this energy coming from? And then I just kind of like have this circle of conversation with myself, and I'm like, you really don't need this. Um, but alcohol is for me, it's just like I don't know, it feels like a band-aid sometimes over a wound, depending upon like, because of course there's social engagements, having a good time, like I get that. But then sometimes it can be there to just like, I guess like plaster over something that needs to be uprooted a little bit more. And I guess like understanding that before you go into engaging with it is also something that's like really important. I think about that with like anything that you decide to do, smoking, like drinking, whatever, whatever, like being aware of like your state of mind before you step into it. And if it's not coming from a clear state of mind or like a grounded state of mind, then maybe rethinking the relationship that you have with it in that very moment.
Completely. Yeah, I think, this is the yeah, I've had times where I've gone like through bouts of not drinking. Like before this, the longest I'd gone was like a year, and then I'd like 100
Mm,
days. And I think the thing I always arrive at when I like have broken sobriety has been like, God, am I drinking because it's like a celebration, or am I drinking to numb something? Like
mm-hmm.
having that awareness of like how you're using whatever it is that you're using with the coffee, alcohol, like you said, smoking. Is it
Mm-hmm.
something that's helping you be more present and happy, or is it something that's actually taking you out of reality? So that's like the
Mm,
the big rub with this stuff, And it's so fucked
yeah.
up because it's like so socially acceptable, yet it can be the most detrimental thing to our spiritual and emotional growth.
Mm-hmm. And I think that like that also comes with, I think, awareness of self, like in being able to notice when you are using whatever substances, whatever it is, and what is it trying to patch up, if it's trying to patch up anything. And then I feel like the things that are the most accessible are the things that are that can hurt us the most. So like some of those, like, because I'm not about to sit here and lie, like I am definitely a smoker,
Yeah.
but it's also something that I have like been, I guess, like conscious of, like, when am I doing this? Like, what is this for? Like, is there a premise for this? Like, and then also just like switching it up sometimes, just kind of like give myself a step back from, I guess, like engaging in it in that way, just to make sure that I'm always conscious about how I'm choosing to engage with things that may not be the best for my body, like in that moment. But I feel like that's always a really like hard thing in the human experience. You know what I mean? Because we're still human beings out here trying to like make sure that we're staying as close to, I guess, like the divine path, whatever that is for you, your divine purpose, as possible. But it's like every day, ooh, child, some of these days really be getting to you. And it's just like, how do I take something off of my plate or off of my shoulders? And I also feel like sometimes they're the gateway in order to create space with other people around you to like communicate in a different way. And then that helps you to kind of like remove some of the edge as time goes along. I've had some of my best conversations with people twisted. Well,
Yeah.
not like okay, twisted. Like I can be very real here.
Yeah, let's keep it real because me too. I mean,
Okay,
I was a New York party girl in my early 20s, and like literally some of my best conversations were just like drinking and talking life in a New York club. So, like, it
okay.
happens.
It happens for sure. And I'm just like, okay, like I remember those times, they were cute, but like I also am like, girl, you're old. Well, I'm not old. I'm seasoned, as I like to say. You're seasoned. So that means that, you can't be out here doing that because your body does not bounce back like it used to. Okay. Like
No.
stop playing yourself.
Yeah, but I mean, that's wisdom, right? It's like going through these phases of initiation and understanding and just redefining relationship to all things.
Yes. I feel like that's kind of like been the theme of 2020 in its entirety, redefining relationships with everything around you, and just kind of like rethinking how you feel about what you find yourself engaged with. And also just like, if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't apply, you got to let it fly. It's kind of like what this year has been. And
Mm.
it's like, well, what does that really mean? I feel like for me, it's been just like my own personal like upbringing. Like I grew up in the South. I'm from Conyers, Georgia, very, very small city outside of like Atlanta, maybe like 40 minutes away. So it's just like I come from a very like small city life. And I think that being like a queer Black man growing up in the South and like coming to, you know, New York, my journey and all that stuff, all of the things that I've kind of like overcome in these years, and now being like an entrepreneur, like working for myself for like over a year at this point. And it's just like all of these huge changes have been happening, and I don't think I gave myself space to like really sit in my reality as it is, because I was still operating from the space of being like the hurt child, the hurt teenager, still kind of like operating from this younger mental state, and needing to recognize and realize like, actually, I'm not there anymore. Like, that's not me. That's not my narrative. That's not my reality. I know that there's still some aspects of that person that exist within me to help me become who I am in this very moment in time, but I don't have to live in that fearful space anymore. And I can really own, you know, my different gifts, my different talents, like my identity as a whole, and be able to share that in the world in my truest self, like whatever that looks like. Because some days it's really cute packaging together, and some days, you know what, she threw on a nice little bun, walked out the door, and called it a day. Like, it just really depends. Like, and it's just like, that's the essence of me. And I think that that doesn't always gel with people when you're vibrating in your true self. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes it does. The right people will always attract to you, but sometimes people are just haters. And I had to let those haters go.
Yeah. Totally. And I think that's also like a paradox of being in the quote
Mm,
unquote spiritual space. You know, people, the level of like gaslighting of like, you just have to like vibe high and this is it. And like create some false narrative that you stick to no matter what. And what I really love and appreciate about you is that like you always keep it real, and your social media is always so real. And that's a breath of fresh air in this space, is being able to know that our stories are fluid. There are the days that we got our shit together, but there are the days where it's like messy bun getting shit done.
mm-hmm. I love that. Oh, I'm gonna have to borrow that for sure, because that is a phrase. No, thank you so much. Like, I honestly feel like, I think one of the biggest reasons why I share my story and share my life in the way that I do is because I grew up not being able to. I grew up feeling very muffled, and it felt like a lot of the time the only person that ever heard me was my journal. And I was a huge, and I still write a lot, but I used to journal literally all the time. That's who heard everything about my life, because I never felt comfortable being able to share. I felt very like, you know, very smart kid, very like in it, top of class, whatever, but very like insular. So a lot of my sharing and my outward like I guess expression is because it was something that I felt shameful of growing up. So it's kind of like my way of fighting back against my demons, and also just kind of like embodying who I've always really wanted to be, which is just like myself, and just like be received as that. So like comments like that just really like mean the world to me, because it's just like, okay, like you're there, and like people see that, because I get so caught up in my head too. I'm Libra moon, I'm all in my head, all in my thoughts, so I'm always just like thinking negatively or like projecting, and I'm just like, you need to calm yourself down. Like, you are fine, like you are fine as you are, like chill out. So thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. And I want to lean deeper into your story, you know, like overcoming a lot of obstacle to kind of step into who you truly are. Like, I'd love to hear about what your relationship to spirit and like the kind of realms beyond, where that started and what kind of inspired you to go on that path, to come from the journal and to just like come out of that spiritual closet and be like, hey, this is who I
Mm.
am and I'm here. Hello.
Thank you so much for asking that. It's I'm actually like, as I like start to say this story, I'm like, I haven't really told this story from like this vantage point that I'm at right now, because I feel like I've overcome so much. Like, I'm not the same person that I was all of, we'll say, like 5 years ago. So as I kind of like mentioned before, like I drank a lot. Like, I was a really like heavy drinker. Basically, like I saw drinking as kind of like my escape. It was to numb everything. Just had a lot of emotions, and very misplaced. Didn't necessarily know where to put them, didn't feel comfortable or confident sharing a lot of like my truth. Just felt very like displaced within my body, if that makes sense. Like, I just didn't feel like I could truly take up space and be seen, even though people would affirm me all the time, but I couldn't receive it. So I used to really just like be out here in these streets, like I've been arrested a couple of times. Like I've been, in hospitals a couple of times, like just from finding myself in bad places at bad times and just like drinking myself into like excess. And there was a point where I ended up kind of like getting kicked out of this place that I was living. And I needed to just like, I knew that that was a moment where I needed to get things together. I was getting ready to teach at the high school level. And I just really wanted to ground myself. So I started like stepping away from alcohol. And I basically ended up diving deeper into essential oils at first. That was like my first insight to anything that was kind of like quote unquote woo woo. Because I mean, essential oils, like I come from a very like Southern Black home. They did not have that growing up. Okay. My coworker I was a Spanish teacher at a high school in Bed-Stuy, and the coworker of mine, she was like, "Oh, use these essential oils that help you to like relax yourself," because I always had really bad anxiety, and that kind of like got me led into crystals because she used to wear all these beautiful crystals and stuff like that. And she was like, "Oh, I'll take you to this store called Namaste," and I'm like, "Okay, cool, like we'll go there." And it was like she took me in there, and that was when like my life changed. Grabbed a labradorite, brought it back to my house, and I'm like, people talking about having psychic visions and meditating and all this stuff and seeing stuff. Let me see what these girls are talking about. And I sat in here and put that on my forehead, and I felt like I went into another place. I went to another planet, another like realm. I felt so much peace. I felt seen. I felt connected, and it was just like, if this is the beginning of like something new for me to like find myself again, then I need to like really lean into it. And I was very much a closet girl, like doing all the numerology, really getting into like, birth charts and stuff like that. This was like 2016-ish, 2017. And it was like that kind of like started my journey. I then hopped into tarot to kind of like read for myself, really just to like help myself ground myself before going into like work those days and stuff like that. So that was my first like, I guess, response. It was like a something to fill the hole from drinking, because I needed something to like focus on that was going to help me stay grounded. And it was like I was starting to notice just how I felt changed. And of course, like, as you start to think, oh, I got a handle on it. Like, I done got my cards, doing readings for people, doing a couple things here and there. You start to think that you've grown out of that space. And I hadn't necessarily gotten it all together. So I ended up kind of like relapsing after like being sober for like a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years. And it was just like seeing some of the same situations playing out again, but like at this accelerated rate. And it scared me because it was just like, you could have died. Like the last time that I had like I call them like incidents. I basically just like got arrested, got put in jail, had to go back and forth for court. It was just like a whole situation. Had my computer robbed, phones robbed, tarot cards robbed, clothes gone, like everything off my back. I got basically stripped down to the bare minimum. And it was just like, if you really want to be about this life, you need to be about this life. Because I was working as a teacher and I was on disability. I wasn't even really teaching at that time because I was trying to get my spirit together. I was so sick, having like IBS and stuff like that. So I'd be in the hospital all the time. And it was like I got stripped to the very bare bones. And this was like about a summer ago. And I like laid in this house for the whole summer. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing right now, but I do not feel like myself. And I know that I need to get myself back on track. And it was just like, I really had to like study my spirit and really like surrender some of those things that I knew were holding me back from my greatness. And it was also like, you see that people also around you are able to receive you in a way that you've always been wanting to be received. And it doesn't have to be within the four walls of a classroom. So it really was like a test of faith. I've been through, I feel like as a Scorpio, we go through some really deep shit in order to like make sense of things. So it was like almost losing everything and losing things really had to like set me straight in order to remind myself of the power that I had and the power that was gifted to me that I needed access back to. And I had all the tools around me. I'd been basically like, people had been teaching me things. I've been pulling stuff from like different arenas, like really like studying and learning all these things on my own from different like practitioners that I like met along the years, looking up things online, really just like putting my own practice into, like making it happen. And that's kind of like how I ended up at this place that I am now, I really just like took a chance because I really had nothing else. It was like, you know, that you have a gift to offer and you're still figuring out how you want to offer it in your most divine like vision. Like, what does it mean for you? It's not necessarily like, I'm not a person that'll pull out cards and be like, I'm gonna read for all these signs, because I can't focus that long. Like, I'm just not that person. Like, I'm like, I can't be the type of person who is reading about love because I know that that's a sore spot in my life, like relationships and things like that. So I'm not the best reader to come to or do those types of situations, but I am the type of person who really thinks about growing self. And it's just like getting closer to your higher self, getting closer to like those ethereal realms and understanding how you can connect and what that looks like and how that feels. And as I kind of like learn that about me and why that's been so important to me, it's kind of like really infused into the type of work that I do. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Mm, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing
Thank
that.
you.
And it's an interesting common thread with some of the most tapped in people I've met, whether it's in present, past times. It's like trauma, tragedy, trials,
Mm-hmm.
those are all part of a breaking away of what no longer serves you so that you can step into your higher power.
Mm-hmm.
And what is a more powerful tool than direct experience for you to be that greater teacher?
Yes.
And like we all have our own path. Like there are like the love witches out there. There are the business witches. There are, this, that, the other thing. There's me who's definitely just like the art weirdo.
But it's
I
love.
think, being that reader, that healer, that voice of saying, hey, listen, this is how I'm going to teach you how to be sovereign. And it's not about, I'm going to find the person to date or I'm going to find this. It's like, let me teach you how to know yourself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because the power of knowing yourself, like truly knowing you, means that everywhere that you walk, every space that you step into, you are glowing, you are shining because you're moving in your divine path and your divine purpose. And people do not miss out on light, no matter where you go. So it's just like making sure that you are aligned in that direction, aligned in that truth. And then also being able to own when you don't feel like you're lit up. Because I feel like there's a power in that transparency and that vulnerability too. Being able to be truthful about like where some of that headiness or where some of that dullness may be coming from when you show up somewhere, and being able to be like, but you know what, I'm still gonna turn it because that's how real bitches do. Okay, that's how a real bitch shows up. And that's exactly what I think is so like important to like be reminded of. We're not made to be perfect, we're made to just be naturally ourselves. And it's like when you can figure out how to truly like ride in that lane of being your unique version of you, nobody can stop you. And I think that that is how I've gotten to where I am right now, because I still have my insecurities. We all have insecurities, but I feel like I have done so much growing around being able to truly feel connected to who I am as myself. And that's somebody that I never thought that I would see, or I struggled to kind of like see the full iteration. But now I feel like, he's here. And I'm like, okay, girl, well, you here. So what we going to do? How we going to rock it?
Totally. And then when you get to a point, like you had mentioned in your past, kind of like when you had grown but then fumbled,
Mm-hmm.
there's this idea of like when the faces change but the song remains the same.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to a point where the faces change and the song changes and you're just like fucking grooving and feeling good, you're like, oh, I'm doing deep work right now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
on my flow.
Okay. Ooh, that word, it has been like my like key word for this year, flow. And I think that that is so
Mm.
important for us to recognize, like as people, like when you are moving in flow and when you're just going with it, even if it doesn't feel comfortable all the time, you still know that it's going to be good. And I feel like divine flow is like the place. That's how I know that I'm in a good place. When I know that no matter what comes up, I'm unbothered because I'm just going with the flow right now, and I'm moving with the current because I know that the current is going to take me to where I need to go, in its own time. Excuse me. And that's, I call those truth burps. So that's very much like a affirmation of, listen, like as long as I'm staying with the like wherever I'm being taken to, and just like trusting that as long as I stay, I like to say like in good standing with the universe, like as long as I'm coming to it from a place of like coming from a gentle heart and coming from like compassion, then I know that everything is going to be all right. And that's all I have to give myself, and that's all I can offer to others.
Completely. That's so beautifully put. Have you found too in your process, like when you just kind of release into that flow state, you become a magnet for things. You've had some like the BuzzFeed video, you've had some great press, you've had some
Oh
like
my
really
gosh.
amazing pieces of content created around like you and your work. And did you find like when those things came to you, was it in this like receptive state of flow? Like when you're just like, all right, I'm just going to be here and let it come?
Oh my gosh. I wish that you could have seen the laugh fit you just threw me into right now. Cause first off, like, thank you. I didn't forget, but I forgot about BuzzFeed for a hot second. And that's like a perfect example of like being in divine flow. Ooh, child, I got a story for you. Okay. So basically this was right around the time that I didn't have any income. The only thing I had coming in was like from readings, and that was very sparing because I was like really on my hustle grind, like had just started like putting videos out and stuff like that. And I almost lost my apartment, but I was also like, oh
Mm,
my gosh, like this opportunity is here. Who knows what this could open up? If somebody I knew had posted that BuzzFeed was looking for that opportunity, looking for somebody, a reader of color, and I, sent my stuff in, and they chose me. And of course, in my paranoid ass mind, I'm like, well, it's not real until you get there. It's not real until it drops. And this is what I'm telling myself the whole damn time. And it was just like, no, like got on the flight. The money came together for me to be able to get the flight. Situation worked out to be able to stay where I needed to stay. Had wonderful friends that were able to just like house me while I was there. Got to see a lot of people. I also had like clients at the same time that I was there. So I was really on like some moving around stuff. And it was like all the clients that I was supposed to meet worked out. BuzzFeed worked out. It was 11/11, like the day that I filmed BuzzFeed last year. So crazy. It was just like, this just feels like it's supposed to be happening right now. And I don't know what I did to deserve this, but you know what? I'm just full of gratitude, and we just gonna see what happens. So yes, I definitely feel like things, if you let things come to you and you stay humble to just like knowing that whatever happens, it's going to be for your highest good. And I feel like putting that intention out there has been some of like the best the best things for me to just like keep myself like good and grounded, and just know that no matter what happens, like whatever's supposed to happen for me is going to happen because I deserve it. And like staying in that attitude of gratitude and staying in like that power has allowed so many wonderful things to happen thus far. And like, ooh, I can't wait to, ooh, let's just say we got more flexes on the way. And I'm excited for what's to come. I don't know what's all going to be happening, but I just have a really good feeling about the things that will be happening in 2021 for sure.
I feel it too. So are you still doing your podcast?
Yes. So, Mystic Moments just celebrated its year in September of this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, yeah, Mystic Moments is basically where I say I bring a little wisdom and mysticism to your week. It's a show where I basically look at the transits throughout a small like window of time, so like 3 weeks normally. And I follow the moon. Like I'm a moon girl, so it's like I like to know like what sign the moon is in. I know about like all the other planets and like their transits and stuff like that, but I don't really pay attention to that as well. That's why I don't like to call myself an astrologer. I just pay attention to how the moon transits mostly, and like what energies are coming up for us to like pay attention to, and how it kind of like relates to things that are going on in my personal life, maybe things that could be going on in your personal life, and then kind of like give you a little bit of guidance to figure out how to make it through a given period of time. So it's been a really wonderful experience because this is actually my second podcast. This is my first time having a podcast by myself. Um, Back in the day, like I think like 2015, 2007 to 2017, I was part of a podcast called The Boys. So it was with two of my best friends, Charles and Scotty. And what we did was basically just like talk about being black and gay in New York and just like what that experience was like. So it's really nice to be back on the air. I love podcasting. I've always wanted to be like a quote unquote like radio personality because I feel like I'm just like great behind a mic. So it's like it's really fun for me to do that and just like connect with people and then talk about the things that are really like happening in real time with us, because we all have different walks of life, but we're all experiencing something together, and we deserve a space to like know that it's not just us. You know what I'm saying? It's not just me, it's not just you. Like we're all going through it, and we can identify, and that's how I feel like we get to find our tribe and like the people that keep us uplifted.
Completely. And I have to say, I mean, you have a great presence. That's just like
Thank
fun
you.
to listen to, fun to watch. I think just conversation is its own art form, and it can be a tool for shifting consciousness. So whether it is mystic moments where you're talking about different like moon transits and astrology, or even your old podcast, like you're talking about with the boys, like somebody that maybe like would never think of these kinds of things could pick it up one day and be like, wow, now my perspective of the world is a little different, you know, like, wow,
Mhm.
I don't even necessarily have to be a person of color or be gay, but it's like, holy fuck, like I can relate to the shared experience of like it being like hard to navigate the world being fully in your truth.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. And I feel like that's part of like my upbringing. Like everything that I do now is basically a reflection of like what I experienced as I like grew up. And because of like my teaching background, and the types of students that I worked with, I've always found it really important for us to find the common thread as us ourselves and understand that like I see you, you see me, we see each other because we are here in this moment together for some divine reason, and I'm learning as much from you as you may be learning from me. And taking that into this world context or taking it to like a larger context and being able to just like have that connection and have like that space to share voice, that space to share stories. Like storytelling is one of like the most, I think, like beautiful art forms that is slept on because it's just like a great storyteller, a great speaker, somebody that's engaging is somebody that can change your life. And some of the best mentors that I've had in my life always grasped my attention with the stories that they would share and how they would express themselves. And that's what encouraged me to want to express myself and make sure that other people felt comfortable to do the same thing.
Completely. And when you think about the meta narrative of, you said you were a Spanish teacher, the idea
Mm-hmm.
of being able to teach someone a language, whether
Oh,
that's a foreign language or a new language of navigating the world with a higher level of
mm-hmm.
consciousness. Think about that. What gift that, like your real world job, whatever is this, but it's like that's your actual spiritual journey is to teach
Mm-hmm.
people a new language to navigate reality with.
Oh, we you just made a that. Thank you for that revelation and thank you for that connection because I feel like that is something that I knew but didn't have the language to like put into words, and it just makes perfect sense because I've always been interested in language. Like I actually started like learning Spanish when I was like 6.
Wow.
Like this, I didn't grow up in the like it, we grew up in a grew up in New York a little bit, but then I ended up going to the South, and that's where I was like raised. So Spanish was very like rare, but it was something that I grew up around like in my early years. So it was something I always wanted to get back to. So like I was the person that was like in all the Spanish classes, like the Spanish club. Like language has always been something very important to me because I feel like when you have I think when you have the tools to be able to like speak another language or just speak about different topics, speak about different subjects, you get to find yourself in different communities, different spaces, and engage with different people, different cultures from different backgrounds. And that's how you learn. That's how you really get to take life by the reins and really get to appreciate the experience of life because you're not keeping yourself in this box of being able to only talk with these type of people, from your hometown or that only speak a certain type of way, that only have the same type of like thought processes, like that becomes very, very closed off. And there's no growth in that. So I've always really found a passion in getting to know other people and their experiences, their lifestyles, their cultures, maybe even put myself in their shoes for a day or just take some time to be able to really appreciate the fact that we can connect and be able to see each other in our own lifetimes and our own lifestyles and like be able to see that we are the same in some way. There's something with the both of us that connects, and it's just like how can I really appreciate that and take this and put this into the bank of like my life story because it's important.
Totally. It's so beautifully put. A friend of mine, he's a master alchemist, and in one of his classes, he was talking about how language is a tool with which we navigate infinity. So when you think about it, this is our tool for navigating the infinite iteration of life.
Mm-hmm.
And when we are so limited to, I wish I had better absorption of language.
Mm.
Because for me, I mean, to be like, if I could choose a superpower, it would definitely be that. Just to be able to like speak every language, give me the babble fish.
Okay.
Um,
That would be
but
dope.
right? Imagine. But in my travels, the thing that is universal too, whether you can speak a language of a foreign country or not, is like a smile, like an
Hmm.
energy. So it's like when you're working with language as a tool and energy as a tool, it's really just opening up so much more to infinite potential within this experience.
Hmm. Within the experience, within yourself, and then it's like you turn the light on within you. So you also end up turning the light on with people around you because they start to notice that shift within you. And it's just like your shift begins their shift as well. Or you guys' shifts collide so that way something explosive and beautiful begins to happen. But it's just like if you never give yourself that opportunity, then you may miss out on something that's wonderful and could truly like shift your life experience into something that's even more fulfilling. So that's why I'm always a proponent of like giving everything a chance, and also just like really getting to know people for who they are, especially when it's just like you're giving me the same energy back. Like, yo, that's how I get down, like if you're giving me that energy, I can give you that energy back. And I think I was talking to somebody today, and it was like, moving from this place of love, like always, and not necessarily like shutting down just because you feel like you have to. Like, I feel like that comes from an unhealed place within me sometimes. It's like, no, like your vibration is love. So, like, how can you just lead with that no matter where you go? Because, the right people will receive it, and you don't need to worry about who's not going to. Because if they can't, then that's on them, because you still pop.
Totally. And I wanted to ask you because, I'm from Jersey
Mhm,
and I've spent a lot of time in New York. Like the majority of my friends back home are from like Manhattan and Brooklyn.
mhm.
But towards the end, I mean, the summer was awful, but the last few months, the New York just felt so dense and heavy for me.
Oh,
And I wanted to hear your perspective of just how it's been for you being in New York and being tapped in on this level and just navigating that space with grace when it feels so fucking heavy.
Jennifer, you asked the greatest questions. I just want to tell you thank you so much. Like
Thank
seriously,
you.
because like oh my goodness. Okay, so let me just tell you, it was crazy, and it was like I don't want to be here. I hate this place. Like I was already having like a moment of like stress with New York because I felt like it's a very fast paced city, and I'm very fast paced, but I also like my space, and that's hard to find in New York.
Yeah.
So I felt, especially like during, I'll say, because I know that you heard about like all like the fireworks and stuff like that going off, and like the helicopters and stuff like that, like flying around the hood, because that was happening for like 2 or 3 months during the
Yeah.
summertime. It just felt like I was
Yes.
living in like a post-apocalyptic world. It felt like everybody's energy was on top of each other. It just felt very heavy and very like overwhelming, to the point where it's like you have to separate yourself from this right now, because if you don't, you will start to like allow that to seep into your truth and like your essence, and you can't do that. It just felt very like I felt paralyzed. I didn't want to do anything, didn't want to see anybody. Like, you're also going to the store, everybody, that was right at the very beginning of like getting deeper into wearing masks and stuff like that. So it just felt very like everybody's on top of each other. Nobody really knows 6 feet. People on the phone, like, typical New York shit, but like it's heightened because now you have these masks and like all this space and all this paranoia and all these gloves and everything like that. So it was very, very overwhelming. And even like to this day, like to be quite honest, like I have not been in New York a lot. Like I've been here, but like I found myself like outside of the city safely when I can be, every month at this point, because I've noticed that I needed that separation, and the universe worked it out to where that could happen. So it was just like, okay, like you appreciate the place when you can drop in, but like staying here for an extended period of time, it just wasn't working. And now things are like trying to like quote unquote get back to normal. Like, restaurants opening up, having like, sidewalk seating and everything like that. And it's just like, it just doesn't feel the same. I like that it's trying to get back to where it's trying to, where it was, but I also feel like just really like take this time to ease in, and let everybody kind of like get through this winter time, because I feel like it's going to be a very cold winter.
Yeah. Yeah. Cold, literally and metaphorically.
Hmm. It's like we know what's coming, but we know what's coming. I think that's the thing. Like we know, but we don't know. So it's like we can go into it with a little bit more of a sense of groundedness if we know what didn't work for us at this time last year.
Completely. And I mean, it's just so weird to think it's been like a year. Corona's birthday
Yeah.
was like a year old a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, we are, I mean, that's such a New York thing, but I think it's just such a testament of humanity is that like everybody's in such a rush and we don't even know where it is that we're going half the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this frantic manic rush into what? And I mean, just when we're faced with our mortality and not only like an individual, a collective, planetary, I remember like height, like vintage quarantine, as my friend calls it.
Mm-hmm.
When everybody's like, the dolphins are coming back, the streets are clear, the pollution is going
The
away, and it's
grass
like,
is greener. Like, oh my gosh. Like, wow, we can see the world is actually changing because we stayed in the fucking house.
yeah. And then everybody's like, no, we need to go out to dinner. I'm hungry.
Tired of being in this house. Like, I just want to get back to normal. Like, it's like, oh
Give
my
me a haircut. I'm gonna
right.
fucking put a gun out and be like, give me my goddamn haircut. Like, give me a break. Really? What a world.
Oh my gosh. America, okay? Like, that's
Yeah,
what we got
America
back
for
to.
sure.
Oh, for sure. Who
We don't
child?
even realize how crazy we are too. I remember like when I went to Tibet like 3 years ago, and I
Mhm.
was in Tibet in the middle of nowhere at a monastery, and this tiny little monk is walking by and sees us, and he has a cane. He's walking really slow, and he looks up and he goes, "Ah, Americans." And I go, "Yeah," and he goes, "Ah, Donald Trump," and he just starts laughing hysterically and walks away with his little cane. And I'm like, fuck, man. Meanwhile, in Tibet, we're the laughing stock of the planet. Like, we are such a weird culture. We have such emphasis on excess and fame and money and capitalism. And like, the way
Mhm.
we treat one another is just abhorrent. It's crazy.
Yes. It's so and like other people literally like laugh at us. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like we feel like a joke and I'm like I don't want to be like this anymore. It's like well how can I run against that cuz I don't want to have that same energy on me. You know what I'm saying? Like what you guys are doing that's cute for y'all but it's not working and it never worked for me. So I'm not ascribing to this.
No, but that's such a huge thing. And I think a lot, like kind of circling back to the beginning of our conversation about like what the future is going to look like. And it's going to be more like community based and realizing like there is no going back because the normal that we had wasn't there. We were built for a world that no longer exists. So we have to create new paradigms. But I really
Mhm.
think that the cornerstone of whatever new civilization emerges is going to, and this isn't my quote, this is Nicholas Roerich, but he says that the cornerstone of a new civil era rests on beauty and knowledge. And
Mm.
those things come from the creative mind, like the people that are thinking about like how can I create and what can I create with living in the space of imagination, creation, community. It's not some airy fairy woo thing. Like my utopia isn't going to be like Burning Man, like that's not my fucking utopia at all. We got to find our people,
No. Okay, like, and that's not the place that I think that my little black ass would like to be at.
You're
No
like,
tea, no shade.
no thanks.
But like, no, it's also just like, well, what does that utopia feel like, and like, how can I inch myself closer to it, and also invest my time around the people that have that same vision, and also knowing that that doesn't have to be just within my neighborhood. That can stretch all over the world, and it's like I think we're in a beautiful age right now where we can connect digitally, globally, and being able to find like the people that we vibrate with, like, and help to keep us grounded. One, but then also to just like looking towards the future and being able to know that listen, like we're on the same wavelength, we're on the same path, we have some of the same purpose, and we're just trying to make sure that we all gather up, gussy up, and get what we can as a community because that's what's going to make sure that we keep ourselves sane. So when these zillennials come up or whatever they call, like we can be cool, calm, and collected. We ain't got to worry about to be like y'all got that, like because we already been there, done that, and we'd have figured it out. So y'all can figure it out
Totally. Oh my
too.
God. So much. And I mean, I think it's like part of why I mean, I know that at some point I should probably watch The Social Dilemma, but like I know that they're already like mining data and it's all corrupt and whatever. But then at the same point, it's like, you know what? Because of social media, you and I have been able to connect. Because of social media, I've been
Hmm.
able to meet some of the greatest people I would have never met if it weren't for this
Yes.
tool.
Yes.
So you can look at it as a tool and find boundaries with it, or you can be like, oh my God, they're mining our data. Wow. It's like,
Uh-huh.
well, yeah, no, like, everything's fucked. So, like, you just have to find a way to
Right.
Walk
I was
the
about to say
tightrope.
you have a social security number. Like chill. Like they know what you are doing. They know where you are at. Okay. So stop tripping. Like it's just like at this point, like if you go into it with this mindset of I'm using this as a tool to, connect, learn more, maybe just like, relax, whatever you set the intention for it to be, and then you will receive what you put into it. But it's just like you mentioned, I think that keyword is boundaries. What are the boundaries that you need to like instill or install upon kind of like your relationship with it? And just like when you feel yourself getting triggered or when you feel yourself getting overwhelmed, and when you start noticing that whatever you're looking at or whoever you're engaging with does not resonate the same way that it was resonating when you first kind of like hit subscribe to them, you are allowed to take a step back and be like, okay, like I'm good, like I just need some new energy. And I think that that's also important to like keep in mind that there are other people that are going to have that same feeling about you. Don't take it personal. You know what I mean? Like,
Completely. You're never going to
it's
be everybody's cup of tea, you know?
okay. And like, that's fine. Like, I ain't trying to be everybody's cup of tea. Like, I like being exclusive. Okay. Because exclusivity, I'm just, exclusivity is real cute. You know what I'm saying? I want to be like the limited edition type of girl. Like, you got 15 orders open at 12 o'clock on Friday the 13th. Like, come through. Like,
Same. And you know what? It's so liberating to get to that point because I remember like, 3 years ago and like prime like insecurity of like, how do I get followers? And like, why isn't people engaging with my content? And like, I'd look at those apps that showed who unfollowed me and I'd be like, this motherfucker unfollowed me? Really?
mm-hmm.
And now I don't
Mm-hmm.
look, I don't care. And, a few months ago when I was just like, when my beloved cat passed away and I was just going through
Mm-hmm.
some stuff, I was like, you know what? I'm going to unfollow anything that doesn't spark joy. And if I don't want to unfollow because I know that these people probably use the apps that show that you unfollow them, I'm just going to mute. And you know what? My
Mm-hmm.
social media feed now is joy, memes, frogs, animals. I'm like
Yes.
totally cool with that. I feel
Yes.
joy when I look on social media now instead of fucking pandemic, Q, all this bullshit. I'm like, ugh, get it away.
Nobody needs this right now. I need a
Yeah.
break. And then it's just like you look at the phone and you're just like, damn, you really just sucked all my energy out of me. And now I'm sitting here looking at the sky like shit. I am tired. Now I'm triggered. Now I got to go through all this. How do I get myself out of this rut? So it's just like cut all the fluff out at this point. I totally understand what you mean. And like I've had to also cuz like even playing the game with social media, like trying to feel like you have to post like every single day or feeling like you have to post like certain types of content in order for things to be like received a certain kind of way. It's just like, no, like that is, I don't know how people like post ads
Oh
regularly.
my
I'm
God.
like, oh girl, I really like, I salute, like, oh child, I salute. Because listen, if I had to think about an ad and like posting like a caption for an ad every single other day or what have you, I think I would lose my fucking mind. Like
No.
it's so hard. Like, and it's just like social media is already hard enough. So it's like you don't want to make it that much more difficult, like by having to deal with all that stuff. Like, mm-mm.
No way. And I think that's the understanding of like, and forgive me if this is like may sound triggering to some listening, but like, like there was all this talk. I don't know if people are even still saying this about like the future being female, the future's female, the future's female. And
Mm-hmm.
like, I really get triggered over like the binary. I think the
Mm-hmm.
future is actually like feminine consciousness, tapping
Yes.
more into that right brain consciousness, which is more intuitive, receptive, dreamy, that
Mm-hmm.
space. So I think that's the future when you talk about like, like I'm going to create an ad and I'm going to create this content and here's my marketing calendar and here's this. It's very like
Mm-hmm.
masculine. This is very assertive. This is very like penetrative. And it's like, let's
Yes.
just flow, baby. Let's just like
Yo,
flow.
and keep it cute, keep it light, keep it fun, like keep it
Yeah.
engaging, keep it fun for yourself. Like I think that I had to ask myself that a lot of the time, like, why am I doing this right now? Do I like what I'm doing right now? Am I in a space where I feel like this is something that is exciting me? Because if it's not, then that means that it's not in alignment with what I should be doing in the first place. And that's kind of like
Mhm.
a check-in that I have had to like have. And I think that mentioning the future is, we'll say quote unquote female, but the future is, I think, like a dreamy. The future is creative. The future is
Yeah.
collaborative. The future is, loving. It's community oriented. And I feel like as long as we kind of like keep that at the forefront of our minds and also operate from a place of truly wanting to engage instead of just doing it for honestly like the likes, like and doing it
Yeah.
for
The dopamine.
the validation. Yes,
Yeah.
like I think that's when the relationship will start to shift for a lot of people. And I don't know, like I just have this feeling that, you know, social media has grown so much. Like, you remember when Instagram used to have like those little tweegrams back in the day when it first started, where you could like type up something and post. You could post
Yeah.
like whatever you. It's like it's come a very long way. So I'm interested to see what the shift of social media looks like and the different types of apps that people use, and how people start engaging with it. Because Instagram is starting to feel like Facebook. No tea, no shade.
Yeah. No, I totally sip that tea. I think the future is actually going to be getting offline and spending time with people that you care about.
Ooh, ooh,
That's
I
how you're
love that.
influencing. And instead of just like influencing and creating content for the void, it's like you're actually
Hmm.
influencing and creating new paradigms of society so that we can traverse the apocalypse with grace.
Whew. From
Boom.
your lips to the universe's ears, okay? Because that's what I'm trying to be on. And it's just like there is time and there is space and there is enough energy for us to be able to connect and communicate like that in these next couple of years. So it's just like, how can we get the ball rolling and start making sure that we do find those people that we can start making those changes with, like, because you, the good old church saying, when two touch and agree, okay, you know what I'm saying, when two touch and agree, that means the Lord is in the room. So it's just like making sure that you connect with the people that are all on the same page, so that way those things can start becoming a reality for us, that
I love
lifestyle can
that.
be a reality.
I actually like, as much of like an esoteric nerd as I am, I've never heard that quote. And you know what? Like, it really makes sense that you'd say that, because this whole interview, my hands have been like on fire. Just, and whenever I
Mm.
feel that, it's like when it is a soul recognition. So the Lord is present, sweetheart.
Yeah. Listen, I hope I'm gonna make sure, I'm like, I need to make sure my grandmother hears that. I need to make sure my mother hears that. Cause you know, they do not get into all of the like spiritual talk. They do not get into the woo woo.
But Jesus
So
is
that
cool
is,
as fuck. Like, there's like really
yo,
cool stuff he said. Like, I love him. I'm down with him.
dope. The realist, okay? Listen, I'm trying to walk like what he did because he had patience, okay? And he was very, very thoughtful. So that's all I be trying to keep in mind as I continue like through my days. But I don't know. I think that especially with like my own personal like beliefs and like my practices and like my upbringing, like I feel like where I am right now is like this perfect blend of what I have acquired and what I have like learned for myself in my, I guess, like my adulthood, meshed with what I was raised on as a foundation, but with my own understanding of it. Because I grew up with very fire, hell, and brimstone, being a little gay boy in the South. You know what I'm saying? So that was like
Yeah,
my narrative and having to like go against that. But I'm just like, no, they always tell you to like find God for yourself. And I never knew what that meant until I was able to, and like be able to
totally.
understand like those different energies and stuff like that, and being able to be like in this space now, I think has been really helpful, because it's just like they may not understand and they may not agree with it, but at the same time I know that where I'm at is a very like grounded and like connected place, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm very grateful for what I've had to go through in order to get here, because it's been able to, you know, help me shine and also like grind through all of the bullshit sometimes, you know.
Totally. And it's only going to get better, with every
Yes.
life experience, with every learning, with every alchemical thing you touch. I mean, you're
Mhm.
just going to step deeper into you. And I love who you are. And this has just been such a joy to connect with you, because you fucking are amazing.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come and talk with you. I hope you know, because I was just like, I was having a whole moment, because I have been waiting for this like conversation for like
Mm.
months. Like, because we had talked about it like months ago, and I was just like, I hope she realizes how much I like am inspired by you, inspired
Oh,
by the work that you do, inspired by your energy, your personality, like your truth. You bring a different sense of, it's like this sense of like grounding, but with this sense of like this very divine, feminine, creative, like I see you, because I'm very like earthy energy. And it just like always like it always engulfs me with love. So I just want to thank you for like talking with me today.
oh
Like,
my
honestly.
God. The pleasure is all mine. I am so grateful for you. And I'm so glad that the stars aligned that we were able to do this today. I
Yes.
mean, this hour flew by, but now is the time, because I'd love everybody to know where they can follow up with you, how they can work with you, all of the things to let people know how to stay in touch with Gary.
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at Gangsta Gurry, Gangsta with an A, because I don't do that buster shit. And Gurry is Gurry. You can also find me on YouTube. I like to post like basically like what's going on in my life. Sometimes I upload some of my videos there. I like to focus on higher self activation. what do you need to know in order to stay closer to the light? What do you need to know in order to stay kind of like on your divine path? So I share a lot of those information, a lot of my stories with the collective. But you can find me via both of those channels. And right now, I have a little something going on for the month of December where I'm doing like yearly spreads. Got a couple things going on, but I'm very like in and out when it comes to work. I'm like, I have to make sure my energy is aligned. So I'm good for the holiday season. But when the new year comes, we're going to have some new fire coming. I can't wait to release it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all that you do and create. The world is lucky that you exist and have been initiated on your path into being who you are.
Oh, thank you so much, Jennifer. And honestly, like I have had such a wonderful time talking with you. I feel so seen every time that we chit chat. And I hope that everybody, whoever is listening to this, that they are able to receive in whatever way. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. I can't wait to do something like this again very soon.
Amazing. We will for sure.